Okay, so as Srishti has wonderfully said that litigated issues in GST, because the main reason of GST being one of the litigated laws is because it is just a 3 years old. It is not a matured law like we see direct tax laws or like we see corporate laws. But in the case of GST, it is just a 3 years old. There are many things that needs to be understood carefully. There can be interpretation issues, but before we discuss about litigated issues in GST, we must understand that there is no law which is without litigation or which is free of litigation. But then GST is much more litigated. There are number of notifications, circulars issued, number of high court rulings. If we talk about particularly in high court rulings itself, on almost every aspect of GST law, whether it's place of supply related, whether it's related to input tax credit, whether it's related to interest issues, whether it's related to return filing, whether it's related to transitional credit, there are so many high court rulings and also so many advanced rulings. But then there are litigations, there are issues which are litigated. What does litigated issues mean? What does litigation means basically? Basically, when there are interpretational issues, when the taxpayer understands a provision differently, but the department understands it from another perspective. Taxpayer understands it the provision for from his viewpoint, but the department opposes the same. It gives rise to litigation. It can be related to compliance, it can be related to any procedural aspect or anything in the law. But then there are issues in GST. So, as there are so many litigated issues, we cannot discuss all the issues in 15 minutes time frame. So, I would highlight few of the issues that I particularly would like to share with all of you. So, what are those issues? Broadly, we will be covering about issues related to supply. It is altogether a separate topic which we can discuss for more than 1 hour. But then I will be covering it in just issues related to input tax credit. Again, it's very broad topic. Issues related to interest and other issues like classification issues, ER related issues, etc. So going forward, before we discuss about supply, the basic fundamental of GST, basic principle of GST, that it is leviable on supply of goods or services. Now, the definition of supply under section 7 covers certain situation, but primarily any transaction to be a supply has to be in the course or furtherance of business. So the definition of business becomes important for us. Now, if we look at the definition under section 2 clause 17 of CGST Act, business include multiple activities. But out of those activities, few things that I would like to highlight, which are actually disputed. If you see subclause C, whether or not there is continuity, regularity, frequency, or whether or not there is volume. Now, even if there is no continuity in for any particular transaction, it will be treated as business. Now, suppose I sold my personal car. There is no continuity, there is no frequency. Volume, even if volume is low, will it be treated as business? Or how can I prove that it is not in the course or furtherance of business? If it is a business, it will be covered in the definition of supply, and accordingly, GST law will be applicable on the same. There can be multiple examples for the same. Now, another clause, subclause C, provision by club, association, society. Now, for this particular subclause, there is a High Court judgment. There are advanced rulings, Calcutta West Bengal bench, Maharashtra bench, and contradictory advanced ruling. When a club provides services to its members and receives subscription fee, whether the same shall be treated as the tax supply in GST or not. So there are contradictory ruling. West Bengal ruling says, advanced ruling authority says it will be considered as supply, but Maharashtra authority says no, it will not be considered as supply. Similarly, there can be multiple examples. So this is in particular in relation to the definition of business. So if we talk about other litigation, we have to keep in mind that the definition of business itself is litigated. Many definitions are not defined in the many terms are not defined in the law. For example, we talk about ITC is blocked in case of foods and beverages, but the term foods and beverages is not defined in the law. So there are other issues with the definition as well. Let us move forward toward the definition of supply. Definition of supply primarily covers all form of supply of goods or services made or agreed to be made for a consideration in the course or furtherance of business. Now the question is, what does the term agreed to be made? Does it mean that if I have received an advance and made an agreement for certain supply of goods, it will be treated as supply? If the advance amount is treated as supply, then there can be many negative impact. For example, reversal under Rule 42 will also be impacted, because the supply has the word supply has to include the advance amount as well, and there can be invoicing provisions, GST audit applicability, and many other provisions can be attracted if the advance is treated as supply. Now, similarly, in the provision of supply itself, Schedule 1 considers supply without consideration by employer to employee. If the employer gives gift to his employee, and the value of gift in a financial year does not exceed 50,000, the same is considered as sorry, if the value exceeds 50,000, the same is considered as supply in Schedule 1. Now, but Schedule 3 considers services by employee to employer. First one is employer to employee, and Schedule 3, which talks about negative list, certain activities which shall not be treated as supply of goods or as supply of services. So the Schedule 3 covers the transaction between employee to employer in relation to the employment. Now the issues with these provisions are, suppose during the work hour, employers provide free food as a part of employment contract. Now it is very common that the employers provide to the employee. Whether the same shall be treated as deemed supply, whether ITC shall be available to the employer or not, whether section 17(5)(h) will disallow the credit of ITC paid on inputs which has been distributed as gift to the employees, because up to 50,000 Schedule 1 will not consider it as a supply. But if it is below 50,000, whether will the employer get ITC, because section 17(5)(h) clearly blocks the ITC of goods distributed as free gifts or samples. For the membership health club and fitness center, membership of health club and fitness center, there is a plus release. But for 17(5)(h), that is goods distributed as free gifts or sample, there is no such clarification as of now. Similarly, as I told, para 1 of Schedule 1 allows gift up to 50,000. But what about schedule section 7 para 1, sorry, Schedule 1 allows gifts up to 50,000 by employer to employee. But para 1 of Schedule 1, which talks about transfer or permanent disposal of business assets. Suppose if the employer is gifting any business asset to the employee, value is less than 50,000, it will not be covered under the Schedule 1, as the gift amount does not exceed 50,000. But para 1 of Schedule 1 says it will be covered if the ITC is taken. So this is about supply. There can be many other issues, but we are moving forward toward another issues which is related to ITC. There are issues in ITC second proviso to 16 section to explain. We will be looking on these aspects in detail. Payment of tax to government as a mandatory condition to claim ITC. Rule 36(4), which is recently introduced in 2019. Block credit related issues, and section 16(4), time limit to claim ITC. Now we will be discussing each one individually. As I said, second proviso to section 16(2) says a person cannot claim ITC on inward supply of any goods or services or both if he has not made the payment to his supplier within 180 days from the date of invoice, or if he has claimed, the same will be added to his output liability and he can reclaim it when he makes the payment. Now the point is, why ITC is denied to the recipient? Because suppose if the recipient is not paying to the supplier will not be eligible to reduce his output liability, showing it as a bad debt. So if the supplier is not eligible to get the benefit of reduced output liability, why the recipient is bothered to reduce his ITC? It is the common practice to sell goods on credit. Again, payment to government is a mandatory condition to claim ITC. How can a recipient ensure that his supplier has actually paid the taxes to the government? Because supplier pays the taxes through GST or 3B, but the supplier discloses the invoice wise detail in GSTR 1. Further, Rule 36(4) allows the taxpayer recipient to claim extra 10% ITC, which is reflected above of the ITC which is reflected in his GSTR 2A. Then why the taxpayer is denied of ITC if the supplier has not made the payment? Further, on this issue, in the pre-GST regime, there were contradictory High Court rulings, one from Mumbai and one from Delhi High Court. So this is already a disputed topic. In the Delhi High Court, already a case is pending for this topic in GST regime. Rule 36(4) is based on section 43A, subsection 4. Is this section yet notified? This section was introduced by way of amendment in GST law, CGST Amendment Act 2018. This section is not yet notified. If the section is not notified, how can the rule restrict the ITC to the recipient? So again, if the rule is not valid, then there can be other issues, but primarily the rule is not valid in law. Another, block credit, even in genuine cases, if the taxpayer has purchased or received any inward supply, if these are genuine cases, why should ITC be blocked? For example, the taxpayer has talking about the COVID situation, the employer has taken cabs on hire for transportation of employees. It is for the safety of employees. Now, renting or hiring of motor vehicle is blocked under section 17(5). Now, why the employer shall be denied of credit? Because they are doing for the welfare of employee and ultimately in the course and furtherance of business. Why should they be denied of ITC? There are many other provisions which are blocking the credit, but then why it is blocking the credit in the genuine case? Now, this is about ITC. Looking about other aspects, issues in interest. There are already many disputed areas in interest, but in particular, I would be discussing about the issues in interest with respect to excess ITC claim. Suppose I have claimed excess ITC, which is not because of non-reconciliation. Means my supplier has disclosed his details in GSTR 1 and I have received the ITC of only those invoices which are reflecting in my GSTR 2A. There is no difference in reconciliation. Supplier and recipient का data पूरा match हो रहा है. So in that case, if I have claimed excess ITC, what should be the rate of interest? So let us read the provision. As per section 53, ITC rate shall be 24% in case excess ITC has been claimed under section 4210. 4210 talks about reconciliation of data of recipient or the recipient and the supplier. So 24% shall not be levied, but then department is sending notices of 24% interest in all cases of excess ITC, whether it is due to reconciliation issues or other issues. This is about interest. Now it can again be discussed for a longer time, but keeping the time limit in mind, moving forward, other issues that can be litigated for classification issues. Classification issues like what should be the proper classification of a transaction, whether it should be supply of goods or services, classification under proper HSN or SEC. For example, we have seen the AAR in case of parota or paratha, or DGGI clarification or Goa AAR in case of alcohol based sanitizer, and also classification issues related to taxable or exempt supply, which we have seen in the case of Chandigarh based JW Marriott Hotel in case of the actor Rahul Bose, whether the services supply shall be taxable or non-taxable. Wrong classifications means no or wrong tax payment and may lead to litigation. Advance ruling or adverse ruling. Again, advance ruling is already a very disputed topic. There are many advance rulings which are not favorable to the taxpayer, and as well they are not valid, maybe interpretational issues. For example, we have seen one advance ruling from Gujarat bench, which says supply from vendors place located outside India to customer outside India is taxable under taxable interstate supply. How? But this point is clearly under entry number 7 of Schedule 3, which says that such kind of activity shall not be treated as supply of goods or as supply of service. It is not a supply at all. My supplier is outside India, my recipient is outside India, and the supplier is directly transferring goods to the recipient, and the goods have not entered into India. Again, savings PPF interest are to be included in aggregate turnovers for registration purpose. As I told you in the first discussion itself, the definition of business. Savings PPF interest are personal in nature. Whether the same shall be treated as business income and included in aggregate turnover or not. So this is disputed because the advance ruling is not correct maybe. GST on sale of developed plot with some amenities. Now, if the developed plot is sold as it is, though it is an immovable property, and sale of land or building is out of the GST unless it is covered in Schedule 2. So again, this is also disputed. Many contradictory rulings like director's remuneration, whether the remuneration paid to directors, full-time directors, shall be covered in the definition of supply or shall it be covered in Schedule 3. Payment to creditor by way of book debt settlement, membership fees received by clubs, alcohol-based sanitizer, etc. These are these are contradictory or non-favorable rulings or disputed rulings. Now, this list will tell us that there can be many other areas. For example, not allowing return filing without payment of tax, blockage of ITC under Rule 86(8), time limit of ITC under Section 16(4). When received, time limit of ITC under Section 16(4). As I told you, time limit can be again disputed because the primary question is whether the ITC can be restricted because of procedural lapses. I could not claim the ITC within time limit as per Section 16(4). Can I be denied of the ITC, or is it my right by way of substance? It is my substantive right. So there can be a lot of discussion on Section 16(4) itself. But then this issue, what I am talking about, when I have received continuous supply and it is overlapping beyond the time limit. Suppose I have received supply in December 2020, and invoice received in December 2020, and it is overlapping and goes beyond September 2021. So time limit is ending on September 2020. So can I claim the ITC for the remaining period beyond September 2020? Invoice is dated December 20. Can I receive the ITC? So the law says no, but then it has to be seen carefully, and it will definitely lead to litigation. Treating unequal as equal. As I told you, supplier has defaulted, recipient is not denied of ITC. How can it be treated as justification? IGST on ocean freight, it is disputed. In the Gujarat High Court, it was ruled that when the ocean freight, suppose I am importing something from outside India, and my supplier has received freight services or transportation services from a person located outside India, and I am not connected with that the service provider who is providing the transportation service. So for that ocean freight portion, shall I be liable to pay tax under reverse charge? So in the case of Mohit Minerals, it was ruled that no, it will not be treated as the entry covered in RCM notification. Interest on ITC availed but not utilized. I have availed the ITC but not utilized the same. It is in my credit ledger, but later on I found that it is I am not eligible to claim that ITC. Will I be required to pay the interest on that ITC claim? So again, there was High Court judgment. As I told you, in every topic there are on almost every topic there are High Court judgments or advance ruling. So interest on ITC will not utilize. There are High Court judgment which says no, interest shall not be leviable. Amount deposited in cash ledger but not paid. So will it be treated as payment, and or if I pay after say 3 days or 4 days and due date has passed, will I be liable to pay interest because of late payment? So again, there is High Court ruling. So pending ITC refund for input services and capital goods. Recently a High Court ruling from the Gujarat. has said that refund of ITC shall be available for input services as well, and for the capital goods it is not yet debated, but for the input services it has been ruled that we can claim the refund. But the GST CGST rules particularly does not talk about the particularly talks about inputs, that is goods, and not input services. It excludes input services. So these are certain areas that I found litigated, and we can discuss on all the topics for more than 1 hour. But then keeping the time frame in mind, I would like to conclude this by saying that GST is a law made by Constitution. It has to abide by the Constitution. But if the provision is challenging or is against the Constitution, it should be either struck down or should be amended. But then when there is an amendment, as we have seen in the case of uh, AAP and company, Gujarat High Court ruled that GSTR 3B is not a return that under section 39, and section 16 for time limit will not apply on GSTR 3B. The government modified the law and made it effective retrospectively. So again, this is again losing the trust of the taxpayers on the High Court and the higher authorities which are ruling genuinely in the favor of taxpayer within the law. So these are these are the things that I wanted to discuss. I hope you all like this presentation. If you want to connect with me, you can connect with me. These contact details. Thank you, sir. I hope I was very clear. So I rest my part, sir.
Okay, thank you, Gopal. Thank you so much. I'll I'll speak about your presentation. You were good. I'll talk about your presentation once we are through with the second presenter. First, I'll like to talk about Gopal. So, Gopal, your score has been 73. You, out of 100, I've evaluated 10 on voice modulation, 10 on presentation, then body language, clarity of topic, time, and content. So, Gopal, your knowledge is very good. Undoubtedly, what we are seeing that you have a lot of practical issues which you're aware of, whatever is happening in the practical world, which is very rare for a student to be aware of. So, what you're doing, what is really going well for you is the fact that you are aware of the practical issues and you're able to communicate it. And the knowledge of your subject is pretty in depth, pretty intense, and you could speak without fumbling, which is again a very big plus from my side, I think, because I've seen you speak earlier. There has been a vast improvement from what you could do earlier to what it is now. Just a couple of improvements which I would like to point out here. Number one is the time. What the reason why I believe that you could have scored more, but the which has resulted in your score getting going a little down is because 15 minutes was the time allotted and you almost could take it to 22 minutes. So when we have a program structured, usually happens that people always want to stick to that particular time thing. So you can keep that small thing in mind. And perhaps there were a few, I would say, a little too many topics, because when you're speaking in front of an audience, what happens is there are people who are listening to GST for not the first time, but perhaps not as in-depth knowledge they have as much as you. So perhaps you could think about curtailing your topics in future. So if I were you, I would give you advice that you can perhaps curtail your topics, because there were slightly too many topics, and the reference to ARs, everyone may not remember it, right? So it's you're actually not you're speaking for the audience, so you may think about curtailing your topics so that whatever they are listening, they should be able to understand and they can relate to every AR. So you can perhaps talk about the AR for 30 seconds, 45 seconds as to what is the meaning, what was the AR all about, and how are you interpreting it, how is your interpretation different. So I'm sure the amount of knowledge which you had to communicate was huge. There was so many things which you wanted to cover. Unfortunately, I could see that you wanted a lot of time. You wanted at least an hour to speak on this topic, and you could actually go on this. I could truly feel it. But the fact that you tried to make it uh, within a small time frame actually slightly was difficult for everyone to grasp. So maybe everyone would not have the same knowledge as maybe the speaker here. So maybe you would want to curtail those aspects in future. So your content was good, but you could tone down on that content. So that was the major aspect. And apart from that, you were very good.